Welcome to another episode of the Mid-Hudson Library System's Engage webinar series. This series is devoted to highlighting libraries that are having a positive impact on their communities. My name is Courtney Wimmers, and I'm the Mid-Hudson Library System's Outreach and Engagement Specialist. Today, we'll be learning about a fantastic summer program idea surrounded by science. We are joined by Amy Smith, who is the Director of Programs and Youth Services at the Red Hook Public Library in the Mid-Hudson Library System. Amy and the staff at the Red Hook Library held a series of community lab programs this summer for the patrons ages 5 and up. They worked with local community members and businesses to teach kids that science is all around us and that there are STEM-related careers right here in the Hudson Valley. So welcome, Amy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Courtney.
So my first question is, what did these programs involve?
So the sessions for the children who were 8 and up, so various sessions, those were 2 hours long. And typically it involved some experiential experiments. And then usually they also made things. Sometimes those were related crafts that they could take home. And other times they were sort of an extension of the experiments that resulted in some product. It's weird to say that, but I guess what I'm really saying is that it was a combination of experiences that maybe didn't result in some material, tangible thing, and then some activities that did result in a tangible thing. And as always with the younger kids, we make sure that there's some physical activity at least once during the sessions. The youngest kids, 5 to 7, they have 1 hour, and it's a similar combination, just a shorter period of time, appropriate for their age.
So, we have the food lab here, and we can see there's a farm lab. So, how did you come up with the idea to do different labs within the community?
So, in the summer of 2017, we had a performing and creative arts summer theme. So we knew that we wanted to shift towards science for this summer. And we'd been working for other types of outreach, mostly adult programs, with area businesses. And I started wondering how we might be able to do something similar, but for the children and the teen audiences. And the first thing that came to mind was we did an adult program where we read a book about the apple orchards in Hudson Valley, and then went to Hardiman's Orchards here in Red Hook. And John Hardiman, I was listening to him explain the truly complex meteorological and parasitology that he has to work through in order to take care of his orchards. And I thought, kids would love to learn this, and he is just a natural teacher. So it took a little bit of convincing, but Farm Lab was sort of born of that connection. And then I just built them out from there. So Farm Lab is was the heart of it, the first one.
So can you say what the kids did during the Farm Lab?
Yeah, absolutely. So every day, and it was for kids 8 through 11, we met at the orchards. Parents dropped them off. More unusual library program where we had to remind them for water and sunscreen and, footwear and so on. But each day there was a different element of agricultural and natural sciences. So the first day was about crops, and the kids planted some seeds that by the end of the week were in fact seedlings. And they went out into the fields with John because in addition to orchards, he also has some vegetable fields, and he taught them about irrigation and that sort of stuff. The second day was animal husbandry, and you have a picture there of Morgan, who is big in 4-H for pigs and cattle, and she brought one of her rabbits as well. So the kids learned a lot about how farm animals are treated, how they're raised, different issues. And then they did some things to take care of the Hardeman's goats. The next day, Katie Gibbons Goose is the apiist, the bee woman, and she taught the kids all about honeybees. She is the one who maintains the hives at Hardeman's Orchards. And the kids loved, the children's response to this week was amazing. But I would say that the bee day kind of blew their minds. Meanwhile, staff, we were holding our breath, worried that someone was going to get stung. No one got stung. And the kids, you can see their Lewis, she showed them how they could just dip their finger into the hive and have honey right out of the hive. And that was, that blew their minds. And then they also studied invasive species, and we went out in the fields to identify them. And I think that's what the girls were doing in that third picture. The really sort of beautiful thing about, and John also taught them about grafting apple trees, and they used sticks and actually did some grafts. Not that we planted any of them, but we could have, he explained to them. The kids really, they were very playful and happy and outdoors and running around, but they were also learning at the same time. So I think for a lot of them, it was a really unique experience. And Red Hook has a deep agricultural history, but it's also a community that is very popular for people coming from other areas. And so a lot of the kids who attended Farm Lab, they knew nothing really about farming, how it was done, what types of science is behind it. And the elementary school is right across the street from a farm. So that was really a nice, circle to sort of bring together.
So we're going to go through another one, which is really cool, the Crash Lab. Yeah. I thought this idea was so cool when you explained it to me. So do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Sure. So the assistant director here, Paul Agnew, and I were actually at NYLA last year, and we were in between. It was like one of those coffee times, and we were sitting thinking about what would be fun to do with the slightly older kids, just sort of brainstorming, free associating. And we came up with the concept of Crash Lab, the concept of it, but we didn't actually, so then I was excited when I could figure out a way to fit it in here. Essentially, the kids built small go-karts that each had a watermelon inside. And their goal was to build something that could survive. We have a very steep driveway for people who've never been here. And we built a wall for the base of that hill. And so, the kids' goal was to crash their vehicle into the wall and have their watermelon survive. And for this one, we had Teresa Burke, who's from the Dutchess County Department of Highways, and Don Trebles, who came from Trebles Garage here. So Teresa was great. She helped the kids figure out and understand the grading of the driveway and sort of what the highways do when there is such a steep hill, how they mitigate that to make it safer for cars. Don taught them about crumple zones and other safety features beyond seatbelts and airbags, which they all knew about. This is a group of kids who were, it was advertised for 11 and up. Most of them were 11 to 13, so not drivers. They loved it. There's also, one day we did the egg drop challenge, and that's the girl Eva holding her Tina. She named her egg. She built it a swing with a drag chute there. We did drops. We threw them out the third floor window, and then later we also sent them down on a small dolly to see if they could survive crashing into the wall. The amazing thing is that the kids clearly understood and grasped a lot of the physics of what we were teaching them. We were sort of sliding it in sideways because for them, none of the watermelons cracked. And a lot of the eggs survived, which is highly improbable. It was very cool. They were wildly enthusiastic and very happy about their creations.
I mean, it just sounds like a lot of fun. You get to build something and then smash it. So it seems
Exactly.
like, but
Exactly.
they're also learning science, so you have the best of
Oh
both
yeah,
worlds.
no. I mean, every single week we were sliding hard science into it, and it wasn't even like we had to cram it to fit. Like everything we were doing had a scientific underpinning, but we phrase it in a way that it's not like let's sit down and calculate, the speed, the acceleration and that sort of stuff, because that wouldn't have sunk into them as much as them actually seeing what happens when they send their car down with no watermelon versus with a watermelon and that sort of stuff. So, and then the last day we had a huge watermelon eating at the very end because we had a lot of watermelon. But it was actually a very cheap program because, I mean, you could sort of tell from there, like, once I realized we were going to do this, I just started collecting, saving cardboard, random weird plastic containers, and all kinds of stuff. And we had these like scooters, so each kid had a fixed wheel scooter that they built on top of. The only cost was the watermelons, and in July they're really not very expensive. So
That's
yeah, it
even
was
better.
fun. Yeah, exactly. And actually, during Crash Lab, the kids came up with another. I made a joke about pumpkin catapult contest kind of stuff, and they got really excited about it. And they asked if we could do a program to build one here. So, in fact, this Saturday, Pumpcapult is happening, and they'll be building with Paul a trebuchet to hopefully, their goal is to sling a pumpkin into the pond behind the library. So I'll have to let you know how that goes.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's great because it also engages the young teenage boys and the girls. And a lot of times when we have programs for that age range, they end up sort of divided. But this one, where it's creative but destructive, it brings everybody in.
So you also did a video reality lab. When I heard about this, I was like, why didn't this exist when I was a kid? Because it's so cool.
That is, in fact, exactly what the two coaches who came in said they wished it had existed when they were kids. So you're not alone. This is another program that we did for that same age group, 11 plus, and everyone in there was between 11 and, 11 and 15. So the concept here was we have a lot of video gaming that happens in the library, and so I sat down with a group of guys who are here every day after school and said, what if, I sort of pitched the idea of it's like the opposite of virtual reality. We would take something that seems to only exist in a video game and see if it could exist in the, reality, the non-virtual reality. And they got pretty excited about it. And so with their help, I asked them, give me 3 matchups from video games of different styles of fighting. So they're huge fans of Smash Brothers. So they had a matchup from there. And then there was a matchup from Zelda and a matchup from a fighting game, a boxing game called Punch-Out! So once I had those 3, I went to Kels and Tom of the Mixed Martial Arts Collective in Red Hook, and I pitched them the idea, and they got really, really excited. And so for the first 2 sessions, it was me and the kids, and I'm not a gamer, so I learned a lot from them, which is always good. Me and the kids, and they worked through. Basically, I actually did put equations on the whiteboard. We worked through the different matchups, and so that they developed the questions they wanted specifically to look at, like, is this move humanly possible? Could the biggest boxer be defeated by the smallest boxer? And we worked through all the different questions about that. And then when the coaches were there the last 3 days, we did 1 day each for boxing, sword fighting, and mixed martial arts. And the kids, as you can see, got really, really into it and learned a ton. And when something wasn't necessarily physically possible or was improbable, they talked about the kind of training you would have to be able to do in order to come close and that sort of thing. And the guys got really engaged. And one of the great things, so the boxing day was the first day with the coaches. That's when the pictures are from. But as the week went on, the group got bigger and bigger. So kid-to-kid word of mouth is a rare thing, especially among young teens. But this definitely was very popular. So, yeah. And, yeah, boxing, sword fighting in the library, why not?
So you kind of ended it with a big discovery day. So do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the things for our SRP closing event, last year it was a big theater production, and in previous years we had at the end of 1 week something where the kids get to show off their work. Our goal in Discovery Day was sort of part science fair, but like not competition, really relaxed, and to give the kids opportunities to feel proud of what they learned and what they did. So I arranged the library so that the entire children's library, there were different areas for the different types of the different labs. So that's Save the Bees that's Violet. She was in the younger group, and she made a whole poster. She got really, really into mason bees. And then there were other themes down there, but there were also activities. So like Violet taught people how to make a mason bee house, which is something that the kindergarten through second grade group did. Also down there were we made solar ovens. So there you could toast a marshmallow in solar ovens activities, but the kids got to teach the adults or their friends or their older siblings. And then upstairs in our community room were the older group. So we had a continuous loop of Crash Lab videos. And Leo is from the All Abilities Teen Science Lab week, and he was teaching people how to make ice cream in a bag, which was one of the food science projects his group did. And then the fashion design lab was the third thing for kids 11 plus. And they showed people what their final products, but also how to use a serger, because they learned that sort of thing, and different things that they had learned on the machine. So it's nice both for the community because they can come and see what we've been doing, but also for the kids. They're the ones who are the experts now, and I like experiences like that for them when they can be in charge.
So I think I already know the answer to this question, but how did the kids respond overall to these programs?
Oh, they loved them. They really did. They really loved them. I don't know. I guess because a lot of the time it wasn't what they expected to have happen. Many of these kids, they've come to lots of other library programs before too, but this past summer we really worked at, infusing things with unexpected, cupcake dissection, like just things that they, didn't expect could possibly happen in a library. I like surprising them happily.
For all of these, it seems like you work with a local business or a local community member as well. How did they respond to these programs?
Very few of them didn't love it. And in the end, the people who came were really, really excited. I mean, it's hard because I was mostly contacting small business owners from right here in Red Hook. Sorry, I live in Red Hook. Anyway, right here in Red Hook, and they're busy, so they couldn't necessarily. Some of them couldn't make the times, but we had Anne Doherty. She owns the Village Bakery, and she taught the kids. We did yeast experiments Jane Keller from Jane's Ice Cream came over from Kingston and talked about, the conditions you need to get ice cream to stay a good consistency and traveling, and how do you develop new flavors. And we had a pediatrician, Dr. Parikh, come when we did sunscreen experiments, and she talked about, why we wear sunscreen. Red Hook has a solar array coming. And so Bob Bronlick from Suncommon came, and we made like bristle bots, but solar powered ones. Those were pretty amazing. And then for fashion design, we had Liz Halpern, who is a textile designer as well as a fashion designer. So it was great. They were excited, and I think a lot of them were pleasantly surprised at the kids' questions. The kids were really engaged, and I think it was a good experience for them. I hope. I mean, they said it was, so I'm going to take them at their word.
So, do you have any tips for a programmer who's listening to this and watching this and being like, oh my God, I need to do this at my library? What would you suggest that they do if they want to try and create a similar program?
I would say if you're the outreach person, or go to your outreach person, or become an outreach person, and find out who's in your village, who's in your town or community, and what their enthusiasms are. Because if they love what they do and are excited and don't find children scary, they'll really respond happily and eagerly. We did have honoraria for the speakers. Not all of them would accept them. So I'm of the opinion that they didn't do it for the money, because it's not like it was very generous anyway. I mean, we're on a budget. It's not that we wouldn't have paid them more. That sounded terrible. But anyway, I would recommend going out and figuring out what the businesses are in the community that would want to do something, and then build it that way. I think that works better than trying to jam, businesses into a preconceived idea. But yeah.
So thank you, Amy, for taking the time to talk with us today and talk about this. As soon as I heard about this, I was like, oh my God, we need to do an Engage webinar, because everybody needs to learn about this. This is such a creative, fantastic programming idea, in that kids learn science, they get excited about things, and you involve different community businesses and community members, and it's just such a great mesh. Like, this is what programming should be. So
thanks.
I'm so impressed by your library.
Oh, thank you. We have a great team here, so we're lucky. But I was glad to do it. It was fun.
So thank you very much, and for everybody listening, stay tuned for our next Engage webinar.